HCAM TV thanks you for watching this presentation. We'd love for you to become a member and use your creativity at our station. Please visit hinghammedia.org or call us at 781-836-5094 if you would like to learn more.
You are watching Jack and Si's Big Five.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Jack and Si's Big Five. I'm Simon Brady. This is Jack Mannion. Welcome to the show today.
Starting off with the NBA, one of the biggest rumors of the offseason is recently Kyrie Irving has made the shocking trade request to leave LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he would likely be rumored to want to go to the New York Knicks or the Phoenix Suns. Irving's unhappiness with LeBron and the Cavs have surfaced, but there have been subtle signs that he indeed wants nothing to do with the franchise from now on. Simon, are you surprised that Irving no longer wants to be LeBron's sidekick in Cleveland?
Well, initially when I heard this news, I was definitely surprised, as I think most people were. But as I've had a few weeks to let it digest and sit, it kind of makes a lot of sense. If you think about his style of play, he's a dominant scorer, does it in a flashy style that attracts fans, and he also doesn't really make others better. So from that perspective, you can see, he wants his own show. He wants to be the star. That makes sense. I think people, when this trade request came out, they forgot that Kyrie Irving back in 2014 had signed a 5-year extension with Cleveland, and that was 11 days prior to LeBron coming back to Cleveland. And there was speculation as to whether LeBron would come back, but it was never a sure thing until it actually happened. It was kind of a bombshell on the NBA, and no one really knew. So Kyrie signed that extension thinking, I'm going to be the solo act, the franchise guy, the sole face of the franchise, and that didn't happen. But it's puzzling to me going forward with Kyrie Irving at age 25, about to enter his prime, is that there are reports that that he had complaints about playing with LeBron and being in Cleveland after they won the title, which seemed like just the perfect situation for him, that there's no way he could be upset. So with that in mind, you think, does he prioritize winning at a championship level in his career? And obviously if he doesn't, then why would any team want to make him your face? So from that perspective, it's puzzling. But if you look at all the angles, as great as it is playing with LeBron James, as great as it is contending for titles, it seems like Kyrie just wants to move on, have a different dynamic in his NBA life.
Definitely. It seems like really bizarre to me that you would want to leave at 25 years old. LeBron James is on your team, may only be there for a few more years, and LeBron's prime is running out. So he probably has only 2-3 years of prime basketball left. You'd think Kyrie would want to ride it out, maybe have a chance to win 2 or 3 more championships, and then if he really does want to be the guy on the team and treated like the franchise player, he would be that in 2 to 3 years. So I just don't understand why he would want to leave already when he could relish a few more years to go win a championship. So it does look like he really prioritizes his star power over winning. So I do see a lot of resemblances to Allen Iverson, someone with a very similar style of play, who was much better and achieved his full potential on his own team by himself. He got a team to the NBA Finals, but when the small sample size we saw with Kyrie, his teams couldn't even sniff the playoffs, nowhere close, and he definitely doesn't make anyone better. So it looks like we're going to have to learn a lot about him if he goes somewhere else, because he has definitely not proven that he can carry a team on his own. Right,
that's true, but I think it's important to remind the viewers that Kyrie Irving, when he did have his own team back in the first few years of his career, you kind of give a guy like that time to get comfortable in the NBA because he only played 11 college games and was the first overall pick, and that's a lot of weight to carry on a bad team. And also, a few years after Kyrie was drafted, Dion Waiters was selected fourth by the Cavs, and there was friction between those two because Dion, as a top 5 pick in his own right, felt I should be having more ball usage and playmaking responsibilities than Kyrie. So Kyrie was kind of in like a funk and not really able to succeed, especially given the other pieces around him. So I think, and now at this stage, he's had plenty of success in the finals. He's won a championship. I think it's not fair to say that he'd have the same amount of failure that he had the first time around his own team elsewhere. You just have to wait and see.
I agree, but if you look at his style of play, he's a straight go-get-his-own-bucket scorer. He does not really create for others, doesn't play much defense, so I just cannot see him elevating others on his team the way LeBron James does. Russell Westbrook, James Harden, some other guys have really improved the guys around them. in the last couple of years playing with minimal supporting cast. And if you look at the way Kyrie and Kevin Love have played when LeBron sits, they were 0-8 last year in the regular season. So he's proven in small sample sizes to not be able to carry the team even at 25 now. So it looks like with that style of play, I cannot see him carrying a team as the number one option.
Yeah, and I completely also disagree with the notion, this has to be thrown out there, that this is an indictment on LeBron's style of play.
Right.
It may be an indictment on LeBron taking so much attention when you're playing on a roster with him, but that just comes with him being the greatest player in the world. So I think it's foolish to say that Kyrie is upset with LeBron on the court. It's more a matter of him just being upset that a spotlight is taken away from him when he is a star in his own right, and he's tired of being an afterthought. It pretty much is what it is.
Absolutely. It seems like LeBron gets A++ superstar treatment. He can bring whoever he wants on plane rides. There's been reports that Kyrie can't bring guests with him as much, even though he's a superstar in his
Not
own
the same
right.
treatment.
Yeah, he just definitely doesn't get the same treatment. So that definitely has something to do with it. But at the same time, it does look a little bit selfish, and it's almost like you feel like he might regret this. If he leaves and the team's not winning in a few years, he'll be like, why did I leave the best player in the world, and regret that opportunity he had. So we'll see if they're able to make a move. The Suns are interested, the Knicks are interested. But what I found interesting is that the Spurs are one of the teams he wants to go to, and if he really wants to be the best player, he would not be on the Spurs because of Kawhi Leonard. So
Right.
that's a weird situation, but we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the Cavs handle this situation. Moving on to our next topic, we're going to go to the gridiron in the world of college football. Alabama Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban recently came out with an interesting scheduling idea in a recent interview, suggesting that all non-conference games in college football should be Power 5 teams versus Power 5, as opposed to Power 5 teams scheduling and beating up on smaller schools in the FCS. So, Jack, is Saban's idea a good one for the game of college football?
I actually do not think so. I like it the way it is right now. I think it's really important at the beginning of the season, if you're a Power 5 team, to have a few easy games to sort of settle into the season. And I think it's also a good thing for the small market teams. It's a good experience to be able to go to a big D1 FCS or FBS stadium, play teams like Alabama or SEC teams. And it's a great experience for the FBS teams because it's a easy game, get to get their feet wet for the first game of the season as they settle in to play better competition. So I don't really understand why. It seems to be something that benefits both sides.
Yeah, I think there's a compromise that will be satisfactory to both your idea and Saban's. I think you have 3 non-conference games, right? I think one of those, what college basketball has is conference versus conference challenge.
Right.
So what I think college football should implement this, where you have one conference randomly matched up against another conference and they all play each other for 1 week. And then in other weeks you can schedule an FCS opponent. So that way you have each Power 5 team gets at least tested to some degree early, and fans aren't showing up for 3 straight 77-0
Right.
blowouts. No one wants to see that. And it's just more intrigue for the fans if you're watching Power 5 versus Power 5. But I do see where you're coming from. Outside of just playing the game, like lifelong experience that you can have for the rest of your life, being a smaller college football player at a lower level, being able to say that I went to Tuscaloosa,
Right.
I went to the Shoe,
Yep.
I went to USC and played, that's a really cool thing. And to have that opportunity taken away from them is really something that I think is unfair to that kid. So I think the compromise is you have one game versus a Power 5, and then the other 2 you have freedom of your schedule, whatever you choose. But I think if you're just scheduling cupcakes, that's really bad. There's nothing more I love than diving into a college football season knowing there's, like this year, a Florida State versus an Alabama or Florida versus Michigan. Those games are very exciting. It's a good benchmark to see where a team is early in the year, and it's best for the fans. So
I agree. I actually really like the idea of a cross-conference game like that, but I think it's important to have at least 1 or 2 of those tune-up games, because if you're just playing Power 5s 12 times a year, that's a lot of wear and tear, and it's much easier to get 1 or 2 easy wins under your belt. You can also play different players that wouldn't get as much playing time, try them out, try different guys at different positions. So I think it's a good thing to have a couple games like that so you can find out some things about your roster, because in closer games, if you don't have the opportunity to try out your bench, you don't know how much you can get out of some of those players. And I do agree, it's just a great opportunity for lower level teams to be able to go to big time FBS stadiums. It's a great life experience, as you said. So.
yeah, in the game of football, stressing safety is at a premium more than ever nowadays. Mm-hmm. And if you're Nick Saban, you're asking to play 12 straight Power 5 games,
Right.
and then for other teams a conference title and a bowl game on top of it. And for the playoff teams too, That's so much wear and tear for kids who are 18 to 22, and that's something that you simply can't put them through. So I agree that you need those softer opponents and also bye weeks, which they still have. But yeah, to put any player through that kind of wear and tear is just not fair to them at all.
Exactly, and I think if you have 12 games against high-quality opponents, you can be out of a chance to compete for a championship by like week 3. And if you take 2 early losses like that, what are you playing for the rest of the season if you're a top team? If you take 2 losses against good teams, you're already done for competing for a championship. So I think it's good to have a couple easy ones to start the season, makes things more interesting, and more teams will be in line for the playoffs by the end of the season too.
Oklahoma had a fantastic team last year, and by week 3 they lost to Houston and Ohio State, 2 formidable opponents, and then like that you're out the rest of the season with no chance to play in a conference title game. So I see where you're coming from. You just need to find that balance of, you don't want fans paying their money to show up and see an awful product of a game that's so lopsided, and you also want to see like the FCS teams get a chance. So you just need to find that good balance, and it's something that college football could consider going forward, because the way non-conference schedules is set up right now, it's a total crapshoot. You can schedule as hard as you want and not get rewarded for it, and or you can just schedule cupcakes and you won't be penalized for it.
Exactly. So definitely got to find a middle ground on that.
Yeah, certainly.
Anyway, so going back to the hardwood now, we're over a month removed since the end of this past NBA season, where former teammates Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant had highly successful seasons without each other, with Russell winning his first MVP and Kevin Durant winning his first championship. Simon, this is obviously a storyline that will continue in the next couple of years, but at this point, who has won the breakup?
Obviously, if you told the two in 2020 hindsight on July 4th, if you told them the two's outcome of this season, they'd both be satisfied, and Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. But to me, I look at Kevin Durant's situation, and it literally couldn't have gone any better for him. I go back to March, this NBA season, he had a foot injury and was out for 13 games, and things were going well, but the Warriors were struggling, and the Warriors rattled off something like 12 of 13 games. And then there were questions by plenty of people in the media around the NBA. Did Kevin Durant ruin a good thing by coming, as crazy as that sounded, because Steph Curry was back to putting up his 2016 MVP numbers. The team was really clicking, and it seemed like the question became for the Warriors, why would you change anything? Because you're back to this good product, and now Kevin Durant comes in and maybe not as good. So Kevin Durant entered the playoffs needing to prove his worth, not just to the whole NBA, but to the Warriors, proving that I am the guy that you needed. He did, certainly. I am the guy that is needed to get us over the hump of Cleveland. And he helped sweep through the Western Conference, and then he got to the NBA Finals. He averaged 35, 8, and 5.5 assists. Say it with me. So, and he became the third player in NBA history to average over 30 in his first 8 NBA Finals games, joining Shaq and MJ. And he did it in a convincing fashion in 5 games, leading them, but also he was faced with pressurized situations, particularly that Game 3 at Cleveland. And I keep going back to that big shot he hit on LeBron that really sealed the series. Insurmountable pressure. If he misses that shot and Cleveland goes down, ends up winning that game, and Golden State ends up losing the series, think of LeBron in Dallas losing the Dallas series times 10. That would have been that bad for Kevin Durant, his brand and his image. And he faced the challenge head on. He made every timely shot, both in Game 3 when it was tight and in the closeout Game 5. Whenever Cleveland kept creeping back in, it was Kevin Durant who closed the deal, said Cleveland is not going to take this for me, and he earned his first championship and won MVP and Finals MVP that no one could debate. So this is what Kevin Durant set out to do. He did it in convincing fashion, and he proved to everyone that, I may have done something that was controversial and soft in people's eyes, but I went out and did my job. So he can be proud of that, certainly.
So you're actually way off on this one. I think it's clearly Westbrook, because Durant, if you look at what he was supposed to do from the start of the season, there was a 73-9 team that he joined. They won less games this year with him than they did the year before, but it was a 73-9 team.
Not going for 73. Go ahead.
There's a 73-9 team that he joined. They should have won the championship. Everyone knows they should have won the championship. Probably should have swept him. But anyway, it wasn't a very surprising thing that they won the championship and he played well. He had a lot of great players around him, like Curry, Draymond, Thompson, Iguodala, a great bench. He actually had a great system there as well, great coaching staff, and everything was set up for him. And I think it was the weakest move I've ever seen by a superstar to leave Russell Westbrook and an Oklahoma City Thunder team that just took that Golden State team to 7 games. And part of the reason they didn't win the series was definitely Durant's fault. A big reason, actually. He shot 11 for 27, and he disappeared in Game 7 as well for big chunks of the game. Leaves that team and goes to the team that just beat him. It's the weakest move I've ever seen by a superstar. And if you look at the public reception now, I think Westbrook definitely won the breakup because people have a lot more respect for him now, and his legacy's gone way up. From this season, Durant's, I think, was just what we expected you to win this championship. You didn't really prove much to me. And if you look at what Westbrook did, he carried a pretty terrible Thunder roster to the 6th seed winning record, won a playoff game, he won the MVP this year, averaged a triple-double, something that hadn't been done since Oscar Robertson, and set an NBA record, 42 triple-doubles in a season. And this is one of the most historic solo acts ever in NBA history. And if you look at, he's the loyal guy. He's perceived as a much better loyal guy than Kevin Durant. People don't like him around the league. So I think his perception went up and his legacy went up from this season.
Yeah, well, maybe, but it amounted to what? A first-round exit in the playoffs. I think Kevin Durant, he set out to do this, and what he wanted with Golden State was a system where there was fluid ball movement, and he didn't have pressure of being isolated and forced to take bad shots or watch Russell take every single shot and take poor shots while he's standing there on the wing.
That's because he didn't demand the ball.
No, he did demand the ball.
Nah, he's weak.
No, listen, he's the best scorer of our generation, and he did not get Russell Westbrook over their career shot more than him, and that's simply ridiculous. Kevin Durant was slighted both by the front office and by Russell Westbrook, and so he didn't owe him anything. He was free to leave. It was a free agent decision. He left, and he made the most of it. And now, looking forward, let's look forward on this past season. Oklahoma City adds Paul George. If you're Russell Westbrook, you can't duplicate what you did this past season. You better be give some shine to Paul George because he is a superstar. Now Kevin Durant, the first championship is always your hardest. Now Kevin Durant has gone over that hurdle, and he did in convincing fashion, whether you want to admit it or not, your ignorant self. And now Kevin Durant, he signed a 2-year deal with Golden State. He can continue to have success there, and now they knows the path to win a championship. He's got it done. He can go elsewhere, which I believe he will do at age 31, and be fully prepared to win a championship or multiple with a bigger challenge. And then his legacy, there's no question there. He's one of the best scorers in our generation. He'll have the titles to back it up, and he'll be really set because he's just on his way, and there's no seeing him slowing down from here.
That may be so if he wins a championship elsewhere, but you said your first championship's always the hardest. Not if you join a 73-9 team that was guaranteed to win the championship.
There's still difficulty involved, whether you want to admit it or not. There is.
Not a high level of difficulty.
If you've got the best player in the world who's chasing MJ on that other side.
But you have 3 of the top 10 best players in the world on your side.
You can't act like the viewing public wasn't split on who would win the title. It wasn't a foregone conclusion. The Warriors had to earn it. And Kevin Durant went out and he did exactly what he had to do, playing the right way, not interfering with Steph, Draymond, or Clay, any of those others shine. That could have gone very wrong with all those egos meshed. And it needs to be commended for that, and you not doing it is just a bad mistake.
Well,
honestly.
Sure, his legacy did go up this year too. He did win his first championship,
Yep.
but I just think Westbrook's went up way more by his perception through the media and his peers, people in the NBA.
That's what's most important. Dude.
Legacy, yeah, we're talking about legacy here. Who won the breakup? And I think Westbrook's legacy went up more than Durant's did this year. He won the MVP, stayed with his original team, which something has to be said for that. It was a really great, loyal move. A lot of people thought he was going to be the guy to leave instead of Durant, and he surprised a lot of people by staying. And Durant's legacy definitely went up, but I feel like he has to win somewhere else for his legacy to really be one of the all-time greats.
Okay, you're wrong. We're going to move on, shifting back to college football for our next discussion. Former Ole Miss head football coach Hugh Freeze recently resigned from his position after 5 seasons with the team. Freeze felt forced out due to a personal conflict. Jack, coaching issues in the SEC are at an all-time high nowadays. Do you believe that is the single biggest factor in the conference's struggle over the past few years?
Yeah, if you look at the SEC in recent years, you've had programs like Missouri, Texas A&M, Arkansas have high-profile coaches have to leave because of a scandal or some sort of recruiting violation, and now add Hugh Freeze to the mix at Ole Miss, and it's yet another one. It's just really crazy that in this conference so much of this keeps happening, and coaches can't seem to discipline their players and keep doing things behind the scenes that are illegal moves. You can't do it, and it's just a really bad look for the conference itself. It looks like only a few programs in the SEC are really stably run programs right now, and it looks like as a conference it's actually taken a dip to one of the third or fourth best conferences, and a couple years ago it was clearly the clear-cut first. So there's a lot of turmoil in the SEC right now. It's not a good look at all for the conference.
Yeah, if we look just a few years ago when the SEC was at its most dominant, and you had 4 or 5, particularly in the SEC West, but you had 4, 5, 6 teams in championship contention. You had Nick Saban, you had Les Miles, you had Gary Pinkel, Mark Richt, Will Muschamp, Bobby Petrino, Steve Spurrier, all in good situations, and now the only one left to that group is Nick Saban, which is kind of crazy how it's fallen off, and it's become a one-man, really a one-team conference. Really, they're the only one that can compete for a championship this year and years to come. And I always say for different sports, there's always that one driving force or face in every sport, whether it's professional or collegiate. For example, the NBA, it's a superstar league. If you're a superstar and you're that great, you can force coaches to be fired. You've plenty of wiggle room to do whatever you want to make you most happy, and you get the most shine. In the NFL, it's the shield. It's all about the owners and the front office. It's a business. And to me, that in college football, that one driving force, that one thing that makes you great is coaching.
Absolutely.
You're dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds playing a physical contact sport, and you need the ultimate mental and physical focus to succeed in the ultimate team game of football. And you see a conference currently like the Big Ten that is just loaded with great coaches like Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh, James Franklin, Paul Chryst, Mark D'Antonio, the list goes on. The Big Ten is set up for plenty of success because of their coaching. And we've seen with the SEC, the coaching dip happens. You can still have all the recruiting success, all the athletes, good schedule, proud fan bases that show up. But if you don't have good coaching, you won't be stable, and that's being proven here in the SEC.
Absolutely. If you look at all those programs that had those coaches, they've taken a huge step back in recent years, and another thing that's gone with that has been quarterback play. There's really only been one good quarterback each of the last couple of years. Just a few years ago, there was Nick Marshall at Auburn, Dak Prescott at Mississippi State, Zach Mettenberger. There was some really good quarterbacks in the conference. Will Grier, now he had to transfer. So now it's really just Alabama has the only really great coach and the only really great quarterback right now. So it's a conference that's really declining in my eyes, and until quarterback play and coaching gets up, they're going to be not one of the top conferences anymore.
Yeah, it says to me that to thrive in college football as a quarterback, you need a great coach there by your side. And I think entering this year, the best quarterback in the country is Sam Darnold, and he has a head coach in Clay Helton, who has been a quarterback's coach in his past. So having something like that certainly helps. And the SEC, it's just crazy to think you can have all the athletes in the world, but with the coaching deficiency, you're just unable to have success. And it appears that Nick Saban has just been the only one to really keep that stability. And we've also seen with their rival Auburn, another team, the SEC we haven't mentioned, they've had 2 coaches that seem to be one-year wonders, and Gene Chizik and Gus Malzahn. So you can have 1 year success, but it's really hard in college football to, even after you've gone to the highest point of success, to continue it for years and years, and SEC coaches have simply been unable to do that.
Absolutely, and if you look at some of their defenses, they're still outstanding. It's just they can't, like LSU, if they had somewhat good quarterback play, they would probably be a national championship contender every year as well, but the quarterback play has been really downhill. And if you look at the coaching around the country, now the best coaches are in the Big Ten. Urban Meyer, Jim Harbaugh, James Franklin, so just a couple of years ago, all the best coaches were in the SEC, so it was a really drastic decline, and we'll see if it improves in recent coming years.
Yeah, coaching firepower is huge in college football.
Absolutely.
All right, for our final topic, we're going to revisit the Kyrie Irving situation for our final topic of the day. ESPN recently reported that Kyrie Irving wants to join the New York Knicks above all other destinations. He also named the Minnesota Timberwolves, San Antonio Spurs, and Miami Heat as desired destination. So, Jack, are the Knicks a smart and realistic option for Kyrie, and do you think any of those other teams are more viable?
I think with what he wants, what he seems to want, the Knicks would be his best option, because if you look at a team like Iverson's 76ers or Westbrook's Thunder right now, Harden's Rockets, it's a one-man show, and that seems to be exactly what he wants and he's craving. And if he went to the Knicks with his style and his personality, I feel like he would fit in really well. He likes the big stage, bright lights, and he'd have the team all to himself. So if he goes to the Knicks, it's his team with Porzingis, but he's clearly the guy on the team, and he does not want LeBron or someone better than him. And Melo would probably be gone if he goes there too. So I think that's probably where he wants to go. San Antonio doesn't seem a great fit for me because it's a system. It's not about yourself at all there. New York, he seems like he could do his own thing more. And now Minnesota has a lot of stars there as well, so I don't think he'd fit there. So I think the New York, if he really wants to go somewhere besides Cleveland, that would be his best fit.
Here's where Kyrie looks foolish if he thinks if the New York Knicks are his top destination. If one of your criteria for wanting to leave the Cavs is front office turmoil, which they've had, the New York Knicks, James Dolan may be the worst owner in sports.
Probably.
The New York Knicks may be the worst run franchise in the NBA. Even and it goes beyond Phil Jackson, who people honed in on because he was such a great coach, and people just couldn't believe he failed to that extent. But even you're James Dolan and you fired Phil Jackson after the most important offseason period, right after the draft, right after free agency period. It's
they wasted
what are you doing? Yeah,
right,
exactly. So if you're Kyrie Irving, do you really want to put yourself in that situation? But if you look beyond the front office and just look at on the court, it seems to make a lot of sense because he'd be in a big market in New York. He'd be the guy. He'd draw plenty of fans to a franchise that's in the dumps. And he also wouldn't have another, like I alluded to the Dion Waiters controversy earlier in the early stages of Kyrie Irving's career. He wouldn't have that guy in New York that would try to take away ball handling from him, be his show solely on the perimeter. And he also has a young guy in the front court in Kristaps Porzingis who you can work with, and that's a nice tandem. And they're also in a weak East. Mm-hmm. So with that duo, surround them with some other formidable role players, and the New York Knicks, I believe, mostly because of the East being so terrible, but they could really have something there. And I think Kyrie would be satisfied if you're talking about him wanting to have his own show and be the focal point.
Definitely, exactly. I think that's the best fit for him to achieve his full potential as a scorer and basketball player. But I do agree. I think he overrates himself a little bit. I don't think he'd make the team that much better. Right. I think they'd make the playoffs, but I think he'd see after a couple years of losing in the first round, he thought he was better than he was, and I think he is going to miss being in a winning situation. But I do think that is where he wants to go. San Antonio, you have to play into a system. Not a great fit for him at all. And I think he's more suited as a second fiddle guy, but we'll find out. I think the Knicks might be where he ends up, possibly Phoenix, where he'll get his own show, and we'll see what he can do. Yeah,
if you're Kyrie Irving, with keeping in mind that when these reports came out about this trade request, that the biggest reason was for not wanting to play second fiddle to LeBron and wanting him to be the focal point, I don't really know where his mind is at when, with four of these teams, one of them, as you said earlier, you're not the best player on the Spurs.
No way.
One, yeah. And two, you'd really have to adjust your game there.
Exactly.
You have to sacrifice playing for Greg Popovich. And then in Minnesota, you could make the argument he's the best player, but it's not going to be your show. You have right. Jimmy Butler on that team. You have Karl Anthony Towns, and you'd be playing for a coach in Tom Thibodeau who demands that you play defense and play hard at all times. And Kyrie, as we've said, is an on and off defender. So if you're Kyrie Irving, I don't really know where your head is at here, but yeah, it seems like if you're talking about a solo act, being that guy, it's the New York Knicks that you want.
Absolutely. So that's going to do it for today. Thanks for tuning in again. We've been getting great feedback recently. The views have been going way up, so appreciate it. Continue to tune in, and thanks. See you next week.
You are watching Jack and Size Big Five.